A walk by the sea. A guided journey down the peaceful shoreline. You are standing at the edge of the world. Or that is what it feels like, here, in the last dark hour before the sun has fully committed to arriving. The beach stretches before you in both directions. Long and pale and barely visible, the sand. The color of old silver in the pre-dawn gray, the water beyond it. A deeper darkness that moves and breathes and makes its presence known without needing to be seen. You have been here before. Or somewhere like here. In that part of yourself that has always known the ocean the way it knows its own heartbeat. By feel, by sound, by the particular quality of the air that arrives off the water and settles into the lungs. Like something that was always meant to be there. You begin to walk. The sand beneath your feet is cool and firm near the waterline, packed down by the tide that came through in the night and left everything smoothed, and clean, and unmarked, as though the beach has been quietly preparing itself for this morning, for this light. For this particular and unrepeatable moment of the world turning back toward the sun. Each step leaves a print that the next wave, when it comes, will erase without malice, simply as a matter of tending, the way the ocean tends to everything it touches, patiently and without exception. The mist is everywhere. Not a fog exactly. More a presence, a softening of the air between you and the horizon, between you and the dunes behind you, between you and the gray-dark sky above. It moves with the breeze in slow, translucent curtains, parting as you walk through it and closing again behind you, cool against your face and the backs of your hands and the exposed skin at your collar. It carries in it the full distillation of the sea, salt and cold and something ancient, something that predates every name ever given to anything, a smell that arrives in the lungs and says, "You are very small, and that is entirely fine, and there is nothing required of you here except to be present and to breathe." You breathe. The breeze comes off the water in long, unhurried pulses, not cold enough to be uncomfortable, but cool enough to make itself known, to remind your skin that it is alive and receiving in here. It moves through your hair, presses gently against your face, and in it, riding it, comes the spray, the finest possible mist of actual ocean. Not just the air's interpretation of it but the water itself, broken into droplets so small they are more sensation than substance, settling on your cheeks and your lips with the faint taste of salt that is, for reasons deeper than memory, one of the most comforting tastes there is. You close your eyes for a moment, just to feel it. The cold. The salt. The push and give of the breeze. The sand shifting infinitesimally beneath your feet. And the sound, always the sound, which is not one sound but dozens layered into something that the ear eventually stops trying to separate and simply receives as a whole. The long, low rush of a wave building, that gathering, that intake of breath. Then the break. White and bright even in this darkness, a tumbling, churning release that runs up the sand toward you and then retreats, dragging small stones back with it in a sound like rainfall on gravel, like something whispering in a language just beyond comprehension. Then another wave begins. It is always beginning. It has always been beginning. The ocean does not pause between its sentences, it simply continues, one long unbroken utterance that started before you were born and will continue long after, and you are standing inside it now, inside the middle of a sentence that has no end, and there is something in this that loosens the chest, that makes the particular concerns of your particular life feel briefly and gently and mercifully far away. Then, from somewhere above and behind you, a seagull. Its cry cuts through the mist like something bright and sharp and utterly without apology. That ancient sound that belongs to no season and no hour. That has been heard on mornings exactly like this one for longer than there have been ears to hear it. Another answers from a different direction. Then a third. Further away. And the three of them trade their calls across the gray air above the water in a conversation that sounds urgent and means nothing and is, somehow, exactly right for this hour. For this light. For this particular quality of not yet morning. They settle again. And in the quiet they leave, from somewhere so far out across the water that the distance itself seems to carry and transform it. A ship's horn. Low and long and resonant. It travels across the surface of the sea and through the mist and reaches you here on the sand. With its edges softened, its authority intact. It sounds once. Holds. Fades into the general breath of the ocean and the air. You don't know what ship it is, where it has been, where it is going. You don't need to. The sound alone is enough, that low, mournful, oddly comforting call, proof that out there in the dark and the mist the world is going about its ancient business, that ships are crossing water, that distances are being traveled, that the world is larger than you can see and continues in every direction beyond the reach of your vision. You find this, somehow, deeply restful. You walk on. And then you see it. The lighthouse. It is further down the coast, perhaps a mile, perhaps more. Distance being difficult to judge in the mist and the dark. But it is there. Unmistakable. Its white tower just barely visible as a paler shape against the dark sky, and from its crown, steady and unhurried, the light turns. You watch it complete its slow revolution, a beam sweeping out across the water, catching the mist and illuminating it from within for just a moment. Making the fog glow with a pale and ghostly light before the beam moves on and the darkness closes in again. Then it comes around once more. And again. You stop walking and simply watch it. There is something about a lighthouse in the dark that the chest recognizes before the mind does. Something about that patient, turning light, that steadiness, that complete indifference to whether anyone is watching or whether anyone needs it in this particular moment. And yet its willingness to keep turning. Keep offering its light to the dark water and the mist and the ships and the morning regardless. It asks for no acknowledgement. It requires no audience. It simply turns, and offers, and turns again, as it has done through every dark morning there has ever been on this stretch of coast. You stand with it for a while. The mist moves between you and the light moves through the mist, and the waves continue their conversation with the shore, and the cold salt air continues its slow passage across your face, and you are aware, standing here, of being part of something so much older and larger than yourself, that the awareness itself is a kind of rest. You are a person standing on a beach in the dark watching a lighthouse turn. You are also everything that has ever stood on a shore and looked out at a light across the water and felt, in doing so, less alone. You begin walking again, slowly. The sky is changing. You notice it first at the horizon. A lightening that is not yet light, a shift in the quality of the darkness from absolute to almost, from night to the idea of morning. The line where the sea meets the sky, invisible until now, begins to suggest itself. A distinction, a seam, the faintest possible contrast between the dark water and the dark sky that is now. Very slowly, becoming two different shades of dark. The mist catches this new quality of light and holds it, diffuses it, spreads it so gently across the shore that it arrives not all at once but gradually. The way warmth arrives in a room where a fire has been quietly building. Then the color comes. First a deep gray rose. Barely there. Like the memory of a sunset or the anticipation of one. Just a staining of the clouds at the horizon, as though the sky is clearing its throat before speaking. Then, beneath it, a thin line of amber, precise and bright, the first truly warm color in a world that has been cold and silver and gray for hours. It intensifies as you watch. Deepening, spreading, the amber becoming gold, the gold finding the undersides of the clouds and lighting them from below until the clouds themselves are burning in slow motion. Lit in shades of rose and copper and a deep, extraordinary orange that has no name adequate to it. The lighthouse beam, still turning, catches this new light and is changed by it. The sea changes too. The water, which has been a dark and undifferentiated moving surface, begins to take the colors of the sky. First in patches, where the swell catches the horizon light and holds it for a moment before turning, then more completely, until the ocean is a shifting, breathing field of rose and gold and silver, the waves cresting in white that glows amber at its edges, the troughs between them holding the deeper colors, the whole surface alive in a way that makes the word alive feel newly invented, newly necessary. You have stopped walking again. You are standing at the waterline, your feet just beyond the reach of the last wave's reach, watching the sun arrive. It comes as a sliver first, a burning point of pure gold at the horizon's edge, almost too bright to look at directly and yet impossible to look away from. Then it rises. Slowly, with a deliberateness that makes rising look like a considered choice, like something the sun has decided to do thoughtfully and well after all these billions of mornings of practice. It clears the horizon and the light it releases across the water is immediate and total, a road of gold laid across the surface of the sea from there to here, from the sun to the shore, from the horizon directly to the place where you are standing. To you. As though the morning has been, all along, specifically and quietly intended for this. You look down. The beach at your feet is transformed, every grain of sand lit from the side by that low, golden light, casting shadows so tiny and so numerous that the whole surface seems to shimmer, seems to be in motion even where it is still. And there, half buried at the waterline, something catches the light differently from everything around it. You crouch down. It is a sand dollar, and it is whole. Perfectly, entirely, improbably whole. No chip, no crack, no missing edge, its surface the pale gray-white of sea-smoothed bone, its pattern pressed into it with a delicacy that seems impossible for something that has spent its life in the tumble and grind of the surf. You lift it carefully, the way you lift things that feel like gifts, and hold it in your open palm. It is lighter than you expected. Lighter than something this old and this whole should be. Its surface is chalky and cool against your skin, and the pattern on it, that 5-petaled flower pressed into its face, that star, that ancient and accidental geometry, is so precise and so complete that for a moment you simply look at it without thinking anything at all. You just look. Below you, at the water's edge, a small crab emerges from the retreating wave and scuttles sideways across the wet sand with a purposefulness that is completely at odds with the direction it is traveling, sideways and very fast, as though it knows exactly where it is going and has simply chosen an unconventional route. It reaches a clump of dark seaweed, pauses, considers, and disappears beneath it. Another appears from nowhere a few feet away, smaller, moving with the same urgent sideways certainty, and vanishes into a small hollow in the sand before the next wave comes to fill it. You watch them with a quiet delight. They are utterly unbothered by the sunrise, by the mist, by the lighthouse still turning in the growing light, by you, a person crouching at the water's edge holding a sand dollar and watching the world come into color. They have their business. You have yours. And the morning, generous as it is, has room for all of it. You stand. You close your fingers gently around the sand dollar and turn your face to the sun. It is fully risen now. Still low. Still golden. Still casting that long morning light across everything it touches, but warm. Warm in a way the morning has not yet been, warm in a way that arrives on the skin like a question answered, like a hand placed gently on a shoulder. You feel it on your forehead first, then your cheeks, then your closed eyelids. Yes, your eyes have closed, without your deciding, because the warmth and the light and the salt air and the sound of the waves have together made a world so complete and so sufficient that there is simply nothing left that requires looking at. Everything worth perceiving can be felt. The sun on your face, steady and golden and patient, pouring its warmth into your skin with the same unhurried generosity it pours it into the sand and the sea and the backs of the crabs and the turning face of the lighthouse and the white wings of the gulls riding the updraft somewhere above you. You are one of the morning's many recipients, and the morning makes no distinction, and this is precisely what makes it so generous. The breeze comes again. Cool and salt-laden. It moves across your sun-warmed cheek and the contrast is extraordinary. Warmth and coolness at once, the sun and the sea negotiating across the surface of your skin, and you, between them, receiving both. You breathe in slowly and the air that enters you is the full expression of this place. Salt and cold water and the faint sweetness of the morning's new warmth and something green and alive from the dunes behind you, sea grass and wild thyme and the mineral breath of wet sand drying in the sun. You hold it for a moment. Then let it go. And in the space that the breath leaves, something opens. It is not a thought exactly. It is the condition that thoughts arise from. A spaciousness, a stillness, an awareness that is not focused on anything in particular and therefore available to everything. The sound of the waves fills it, and the warmth of the sun, and the weight of the sand dollar in your closed hand, cool and chalky and whole. The distant cry of a gull, spiraling up somewhere you cannot see. The ship's horn again, even further now, the vessel having moved on through the mist, its sound arriving as the faintest possible memory of itself. Your imagination begins to move. Gently, without direction. The way clouds move, the way the tide moves, not toward anything but simply in the nature of moving. You see, behind your closed eyes, the sea as it looks from above, that endless shifting blue-green gold, the waves as patterns, as the breathing of something enormous and alive. You see the lighthouse as it must look from the water, white and resolute on its rocky point, its light turning even now in the growing day, faithful in the way that only patient things are faithful. You see the crabs in their world beneath the waves, a dark and cold and intricate world, full of small purposeful lives, tending to their own particular necessities with the same seriousness you tend to yours. You feel, standing here, the extraordinary privilege of having a body, of being a thing that can feel warmth on its face and cold air on its skin simultaneously, that can hold a sand dollar and know, by touch, something of what the ocean knows about time, that can hear a ship's horn from a mile across the water and feel, in the hearing of it, both the vastness of the world and the smallness of the distance between any two living things, that can stand on the edge of the sea in the first light of a spring morning and be, simply, here, present, breathing, held by gravity and warmed by a star and surrounded by salt air and the sound of the oldest water there is. Here. You are here. The sun continues its slow climbing. The waves continue their conversation with the shore. Somewhere above you, invisible in the brightness, a gull cries once, that clean, salt-sharp sound, and the morning receives it, and the morning receives you, and you stand in the warmth with your eyes closed and the sand dollar in your palm and the whole vast patient ocean at your feet, and you are, for this moment, completely and entirely, at rest. The world, it turns out, has been quietly filling in around you. You didn't notice them arriving. The morning has a way of doing that, of adding things to itself so gently that you only discover them when you open your eyes and find the beach is no longer just yours and the light and the water. It belongs now, as it always has, to everyone who found their way here before the day properly began, drawn by the same pull that brought you, that ancient, wordless understanding that the ocean at sunrise asks something of certain people, and that certain people, without quite deciding to, always answer. The fishermen came first. There are 3 of them that you can see, spread along the waterline in the comfortable distance that fishermen keep from one another. Close enough to be companionable, far enough to be alone. They wear their waders with the ease of people who have worn them so many times that the gear has become as natural as skin. Dark rubber against the pale morning sand, and they have walked out into the shallows with that particular confident, unhurried stride of those who know exactly how the seabed behaves beneath their feet, who have memorized its drops and hollows and sudden shelves through years of standing in this same cold water in this same low light. One of them is very still. He stands perhaps knee-deep, his line already out, the rod held loosely at his side, and he is looking at the water the way fishermen look at water. Not searching exactly, more attending, the way you attend to something you trust to arrive in its own time. The mist still moves around him in slow curtains and he lets it, unhurried, his breath making small clouds in the cold morning air that the breeze takes and dissolves before they have traveled very far. He could be a statue. He could be part of the morning itself. One more patient thing standing in the water waiting for what the sea decides to give. Further along, another fisherman is checking his traps. He moves with more purpose, wading deeper, reaching down into the water with gloved hands and hauling up a wire cage that breaks the surface streaming silver, the water falling from it in a curtain that catches the morning light, and scatters it in 1,000 brief directions before rejoining the sea. He examines it with the practiced eye of someone who has done this so many times that his hands and his eyes work independently, his gaze already moving to the next trap while his fingers complete the work of the last. He resets it, lowers it carefully, marks its position in whatever internal map he keeps of this stretch of water, and moves on. You watch him with a quiet respect. There is something deeply settling about people doing things they know how to do, about competence in its most unperformed form, skill that has been absorbed so completely it no longer looks like skill, only like belonging. These men belong to this water. They have earned it through early mornings beyond counting, through cold and patience and the particular education that only the sea provides, which is the education of waiting, of accepting, of understanding that some things come and some things don't and that the standing in the water matters regardless. The beach behind you has gathered others too. A couple walks at the edge of the dunes, their footprints joining the morning's small record of those who came before them, their voices lost to the sound of the waves so that you see them talking without hearing anything. Two people in conversation with the world muted around them, which makes them look, from here, like figures in a painting, intimate and self-contained. They walk slowly, the way people walk when they are not going anywhere in particular, when the walking is the point, and they pause occasionally to look at something. A shell, a bird, the way the light is doing something remarkable on the water. And then continue, unhurried. And then the dog arrives. He comes from your left at a full run. A golden retriever, ears back, all four paws leaving the sand simultaneously at the top of each stride, moving with the complete and uncomplicated joy of a dog that has seen the ocean and decided that this is what legs are for. He reaches the waterline before his owner. A woman in a heavy coat, laughing, calling something the wind takes before it reaches you, and hits the shallow water without breaking stride, sending a fan of spray into the gold morning air that catches the light and hangs for a moment like something thrown with great happiness into a world that can hold it. He plunges into his chest, stands there for a moment, panting, looking back at his owner with an expression of absolute and unironic triumph. Then something in the water catches his attention. A wave, a shadow, his own reflection. and he lunges at it, and the spray goes up again, and his owner reaches the waterline and stops, shaking her head in the way of someone who has loved this particular dog for a long time and stopped expecting anything different, and finds, in that stopping, a kind of pure contentment. You smile. The dog extracts himself from the wave's reach, shakes himself with the total commitment of a creature who feels no need to be apologetic about being wet, and then spots something. A length of driftwood, half buried in the sand, and is off again at full speed, tail a spinning blur, joy a completely renewable resource. Further along the beach, another dog, smaller, some kind of terrier, very serious about something only it can smell, is making its way along the waterline in an urgent zigzag pattern, nose down, entirely absorbed in a narrative the rest of you cannot access. Its owner walks behind it at a comfortable distance, hands in pockets, looking out at the water with the expression of someone engaged in their own private thinking. Content to let the dog lead and the morning unfold and the waves do what waves do. You watch them all for a while. The fishermen in their waders, the couple at the dune's edge, the retriever in its private ocean, the terrier following its invisible story. And feel, watching them, a particular warmth that has nothing to do with the sun. The warmth of shade morning. Of people who chose, each for their own reason, this particular stretch of coast in this particular grey-gold hour, and who are now, without having arranged it or agreed to it, keeping each other company in the best possible way. By simply being here. Each in their own world. Each lending their presence to the larger world that contains them all. Your gaze drifts along the coast. Past the fishermen, past the point where the beach curves gently and the dunes give way to rocks. Dark and barnacled and salt-worn. Rising from the sand in formations that look deliberate and are simply the result of time doing what time does to everything it touches. The mist is thinner here in the growing light, and the morning has become generous with its visibility, and you can see further now than you could an hour ago, the coastline revealing itself in stages as the sun climbs and the grey retreats. And then you find it. You always find it. The tree. It is where it always is. Impossibly far down the coast, growing from the face of a rock formation so steep and so exposed to the full force of the ocean wind that a tree has no right to be there at all. And yet here it is. Has always been. Quietly refusing the terms the landscape offered and growing anyway. From this distance it is small, a dark mark against the lightening sky. But you know its shape the way you know the shapes of things you have looked for many times. The slight lean of it. The way its branches have been schooled by decades of prevailing wind into reaching only in the direction the wind permits, giving the tree a gesture. A posture. Like someone leaning into something difficult with patience and without complaint. Today it is upright. Or nearly. As upright as it ever gets. Which is not very. But compared to other mornings when the mist or the light or the angle of your approach makes it invisible entirely, or reduces it to a suggestion, a maybe, a shape that might be rock or might be tree depending on how the eye chooses to interpret the evidence. Today it is there. Clearly and definitively there. Its dark silhouette holding against the pale sky with a kind of quiet stubbornness that you have always found, without quite being able to say why. Deeply encouraging. You look for it every time. You have always looked for it. It has become one of those private rituals that accumulate around places you love. The things you check. The things you orient yourself by. The things that tell you not just where you are, but that you are here. In this specific place, in this specific relationship with a coastline that has its own continuities, its own landmarks, its own way of being itself across every season and every light and every mood you have brought to it. The tree is always there, or almost always, and the mornings when it reveals itself clearly feel like small gifts, like the coast acknowledging your return. This is one of those mornings. You hold it in your gaze for a moment. That small, stubborn, improbable tree, growing from solid rock above the salt water, shaped by everything that has tried to stop it and still, stubbornly, here. And then you let your eyes drift back to the nearer world, to the light on the water and the fishermen in their waders and the retriever, now at a full run again, chasing a ball its owner has thrown in a long arc toward the waves. The ball hits the water. The dog hits the water. The spray goes up in a bright explosion of gold and white. And you stand in the warmth of the sun with the sand dollar still in your palm and the salt air still moving across your face and the sound of the ocean filling the space behind every other sound, and you breathe in the whole of it. The cold and the warmth. The near and the far. The fishermen in their patient waders and the tree growing from its impossible rock and the dog and the couple and the morning and the light and the sea. And you breathe it all slowly out. And your eyes, which have been taking in so much, begin to soften. The world does not go away. It simply becomes something you are resting inside of rather than something you are watching. The sounds remain. The waves, the gulls, the distant happy bark of the retriever finding its ball. But they arrange themselves into something continuous and low and deeply comforting, the way rain on a roof rearranges itself from individual drops into a single soft roar that the body reads not as noise but as permission. Permission to be still. Permission to be heavy. Permission to stand here in the morning sun with your face turned toward the warmth and your feet in the cool sand and the sand dollar smooth against your palm and simply stop arriving anywhere. You are already here. The sun continues its slow and faithful climbing. The fishermen tend their lines and their traps in the shallows, patient and steady, belonging to the water the way the rocks belong to it. The couple walks on along the dunes, their conversation the private kind, the comfortable kind, the kind that doesn't need to go anywhere. The retriever shakes itself dry and immediately reconsiders the water. And the tree, far down the coast on its impossible rock, holds its ground the way it always has, shaped by every wind that ever crossed this stretch of ocean and still, against all reasonable expectation. Standing. Your eyes close. Not all the way. Just enough that the gold of the morning light comes through your eyelids as a warmth rather than a brightness, a glow rather than a sight, the sun pressing gently against your closed eyes the way a hand presses gently against something it wants to comfort. You feel your breath slow. Feel the sand dollar in your palm, cool and whole and ancient. Feel the breeze arrive and pass and arrive again, each time with its cargo of salt and cold water and the full breathing world of the sea. You are so warm. And so held. And so completely, quietly, peacefully, here. Rest now. The morning will keep.